Hey guys, welcome to Bird Brothers, two brothers in Ohio, lifelong Eagles fans. We're going to be previewing the Philadelphia Eagles Washington Commanders game coming up later today. Ryan, what are your initial thoughts of the game? What are some things that some folks should look out for?
Um, same thing. They got a very explosive offense. Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Gibson's played really well. I think their line's pretty improved. They seem to be playing better. And Wentz hasn't played bad. Wentz has played pretty good. 650 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. So we know what he can do. We know he has these electric plays in him where he can kind of extend a play and then hit you downfield. But I'm wondering kind of on the mental aspect of things. Is Wentz, playing Philly gonna be like weird for him? Is he gonna like struggle? I saw one guy's prediction was close game. It was like 30-27, but Wentz makes a crucial mistake at the end of the game to like lose, something like that. But I think the key to this game is slowing down Curtis Samuel. He's pretty electric. He's kind of like I saw one guy compare him saying he's basically he's like Debo Samuel with the ball in his hands, but he's a what do you say? He's a route runner like Jerry Judy. So you kind of like splice two guys together and said he's like this guy can get open. He's got very good chemistry so far with Wentz too. He's got like a good amount of targets, and they usually are completions. But they also have Jahan Dotson, who's a guy. But I think the key would be slowing down Curtis Samuel. And I saw Landon Dickerson is questionable, but they said they didn't seem too concerned that he's probably going to play. So their defense is going to be an issue for them, though. So they're the worst run defense in the league right now, which is good for us, obviously. And then it's only 2 games, so it's not anything to be crazy about, but worst run defense in the league. But it's the worst start for a run defense since 1951. So they're giving up like 8 yards a carry right now. So pretty nuts. And what's funny is they're the worst start since 1951. That team was the New York Yanks. So that was the American Football League era, I think. But they're also 27th ranked against the pass. So they're bottom of the barrel on both sides, run and pass. I think who's William Jackson. I think it's their guy. I think he's questionable to play.
Corner?
Is it? Yeah. So I think they're going to really struggle. I think it'll be a struggle for them to slow us down, and I think our defense is head and shoulders above them, especially with them not having Chase Young. That's a big loss. So I don't see it being too close, and I don't want to jinx us or anything like that. If you believe in that kind of thing, but I don't think their defense is going to be able to stop us at all, and I think our defense will settle in. And even if they come out and start, or they put it down the field pretty quickly, I think we'll be able to settle in. We make the adjustments, but
In regards to being jinxed, I saw that your Facebook profile says, "I'm not superstitious. I'm a little stitious."
yeah, that's yeah, that's a quote from The Office. If people aren't familiar with that, so Michael Scott, they asked him if he's superstitious, and he said, "I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious." So
Okay, so yes, not the Redskins, the Commanders. The Commanders beat the Jaguars week 1, 28-22. They
yeah,
had a big lead in that game, if I remember, and the Jaguars kind of came back, made it a little interesting. Week 2, they were beat by the Lions. I'm guessing the Lions ran the ball all over them.
yeah,
Lions are a good running football team. Good offensive line. They ran the ball good against us. Perhaps that was their offensive line that was really good. And I think it was also a little bit of us, poor execution,
yeah.
because the Vikings, I mean, we looked much better against the run. And I think the Vikings offensive line is not nearly what the Lions is, but they have Dalvin Cook. They run the ball on people, and we shut them down. So I think we've made some pretty good adjustments. Yeah, and it is early to tell because I wouldn't think that the Redskins or the Commanders would have a bad defense. Like
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think
Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, they got
they're dealing with injuries too. I think they're kind of, William Jackson. I don't think has played, or maybe he went out week 1. But I do think they're a talented defense. I don't think they're not gonna finish the season where they're at now. But we can only go off of what we have, and they've played very poorly these first 2 weeks. So,
and it is in Washington.
right. So it's a little bit, it's a little bit of a help for them. It's always obviously great to play at home rather than away. I'm curious, man. I don't have any animosity or hate towards Carson Wentz. We talked about that before in an episode. Do we think he's going to get booed when he comes back? And the more I see, the more I mean, I knew Rager was going to get booed if he got on the field. I was like, if Rager comes out there, they're going to boo him. And of course, they did every single time he stepped on the field. But I don't know.
At this point, I don't know. Wentz has a lot to do with the Super Bowl. I agree with that. I don't take that away from him. But at this point, man, he's on his 3rd team.
Yeah.
It's just like he seems like he's kind of a head case.
Yeah, there's something going on there. I mean,
I think they're gonna boo him.
Yeah, I do too. I'm leaning like the more we get into the season, I think they will as well. It's just kind of, I don't know, good and bad, because yes, he did things where we had a ton of dead cap space because he couldn't get his head right or whatever the scenario was. But then we have our first ever Super Bowl because of him. We would have never been in the Super Bowl without him in that regular season. Getting us into the playoffs with a high seed, all that stuff. So I mean, I don't know. Personally, I want to see him succeed. It just sucks now that he's on, a division rival. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how they handle it. What kind of game plan they come out to attack us. I would expect us to bring pressure, kind of try to hit Wentz early and get in his head a little bit, because we know that's a thing. But yeah, I look for it to be a pretty successful game. If we stick to what we did last week, just run the ball, stay balanced, and we spread the ball around phenomenal last week. Like, I think we had 4 guys that were above 60 yards receiving. So, I mean, and that's including, like, obviously one was Quez Watkins, who had 1 catch for 53 yards, but I think he had a few other catches. Yeah, that's what we need to see. We can't target AJ Brown, 15 times and DeVonta Smith twice. We have to utilize our weapons, play to our strengths and run the football, and just, stay where we're at, stay balanced.
Yeah. Looking forward to Jalen Hurts' progression. Super excited about him. His game versus the Vikings last week, best game I've ever seen him play. He played lights out. He did everything right. That's the first time I ever thought, like, wow, maybe this guy could develop into Russell Wilson. The character and the leadership's off the charts. That'll sustain him over the long term. He threw the ball accurate, dude.
Yeah, he did.
He was very accurate.
I saw. So I was watching the thing. I'm not even sure who did it, but I like watching when guys like ex players, like, that's why I like listening to Romo. Obviously, like, I don't know, like, there's some people that don't like, that everyone has their preferred analyst. I love listening to Romo because he points out things that analysts who are just football fans don't understand or don't know. So they're kind of like teaching moments where they'll show, like, Justin Herbert, like, last year would stand in the pocket with his shoulders like cocked. So then when he goes to throw, he has to lift and then throw. And now this year he comes out and he's level. His shoulders are perfectly straight, so he can just release the ball. Things like that he's tweaked. And they talked about Jalen Hurts, where they're like, he has obviously put in the work in the offseason. And he has, it's the, what is it, Will Smith quote that says, like, you're only going to be great after hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft. Figure it, like, it's not just going to come to you over, a couple days. It's repetition. That's the same with anything. Like, teach your body to do this, muscle memory. It's the same way of, like, how you form bad habits. You have bad habits, like we talked about, you do one thing bad, but it was successful, and you just keep going and no one corrects it. Like, me and you both played baseball forever, and you can get in these slumps because you tweak one little thing in your swing, you get like a hitch in your swing, and now you can't hit the ball. And it's like I remember I was popping the ball up over and over, and like this coach here put like a baseball under my arm, and I was like, all right, that's painful. He's like, yeah. So like if you try to dip, it's gonna hit your like it's gonna hurt. So I literally for like the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 practices, I hit like that. Baseball under the arm. I would dip and I was like, that hurts. So I would teach myself to not like dip my shoulder, things like that. And then all of a sudden you can hit the ball again. So things like that. I love seeing it. I love seeing progression that he's really like taken the step, put the effort in, which I expected he would. But there's guys that have crazy work ethic, hardest worker in the gym everywhere they've ever been, but they just don't have it.
Yeah.
So that's my concern this offseason was, does he even have it? Character's off the charts, work ethic's off the charts. He can run, but if he just doesn't have it, that's, he doesn't have it. It is what it is. But,
Yeah.
and again, it's early, but I love seeing that he's changed little things. His footwork's a lot better. He's not fidgety in the pocket, and he doesn't hesitate. That was his biggest thing, hesitation, man, where he would just, you'd see him make a read and you could see he wanted it. And then he would just like, wait, and then he'd throw it and it's too late now. Like you have split seconds in the NFL. And he's not hesitating, which is huge.
Yeah. And he's threaded by not hesitating. He's threaded some tight needles.
Yeah.
Like there was a couple passes I remember specifically last week to AJ Brown. I think one was a slant, one was like a deeper dig route where Brown kind of settled in.
Yeah.
And both times, like there's an inside defender closing, like they're reaching for the ball.
Yeah.
They didn't get the ball, obviously, but it was tight windows. And that happens because he's got the arm talent to make the throw, but he's throwing it on time and he's not hesitating. He's not second guessing himself. So his confidence is rising. His comfort level is rising. So, and he's not the type, I don't believe he's the type of guy to, go backwards.
Right.
He's not going to be like, man, I played great. Like, yeah, man, I'm going to get a contract now. Like, he's not thinking about that.
No.
That's what you want, man. Like, you don't just want a talented guy. Carson Wentz is super talented.
Yeah.
On his third team in like 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, super talented. Jay Cutler, super talented. I don't know if he won a playoff game.
No.
Smoking Jay, is that what you said?
Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
He was smoking a cigarette on the sideline.
Oh, I forgot about that. God. Yeah, super talented man, but you gotta want to be great. You know, nobody can want it for you more than yourself.
Right.
I mean, in my line of work, I meet people like this. I meet people with like a lot of potential. I'm like, man, this guy or this girl, they could be so freaking good. They could be so good, but they won't be unless they want to be.
Right.
So excited to continue to watch Jalen's progression, and I think the Commanders. Man, I am terrible about the Redskins Commanders thing, but the Commanders they have ridiculous amounts of weapons. Yeah. I really like their running back. I liked Garrett Wilson a lot coming out of Ohio State this year, and Jahan Dotson is like, if you look at them, like they're like the same height, same weight. They ran close 40s, and then you watch their play style. They both wore number 5, and they play similarly.
Yeah,
they're not big guys, but they'll go up and high point the ball. They make contested catches. They have ridiculous leaping ability. They look very similar, similar players. So Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin is the big dog over there.
Yeah.
Another former Buckeye. Curtis Samuel, the new addition. He can flat out fly, another former Buckeye. And as you mentioned, they're using him at running back, end arounds. They're throwing the ball on screens. I watched the highlights after week 1 on them, man. And there was like 3 or 4 plays to Curtis Samuel. And he made in 3 or 4 plays, he made like 4 guys miss.
Yeah.
Which is rare in the NFL. He juked a guy, spun around a guy. Like, he's making guys miss. He's making things happen. And so very explosive athlete. I hope we can get pressure on Wentz, because Wentz doesn't handle it well, and I'm not saying he's going to, he could just throw it up. But more often than not, he'll hold on to the ball. He'll try to do something
He
with the
tries to
ball.
secure the ball.
Yeah.
He
So
holds onto it, and yeah,
if his first or second read's not there, rather than throw it away or rather than just throw it at the guy's feet, he's gonna try to step up. He's gonna try to run around. So if
yeah,
he can get pressure, um, obviously you want to get pressure with the front four. But even if we have to blitz the guy, man, we've got the corners. They got a lot of weapons. We got a lot of corners.
yeah,
We have the guys to match up. This is good. This is as good as it gets in an NFL salary cap era on
yeah.
the back end. Like we got guys that can match up man to man. And the same goes with running the football. Like they have a strong defensive line. They got a lot of high draft picks on that D line, and they got a first round pick at linebacker. They've got high draft picks on that defense. Well, we've got the offensive line to contend. We should be able to run the ball. So, but every division game, man, NFC East division game, I never take it lightly. We know
Yeah.
each other so well. We split with the Giants last year, dude.
And they're coached well. The Commanders are coached well. I love Ron Rivera. I think he's a very, very good coach, and I think Wentz is maybe settling in because of that. Because we just last year he didn't play bad. We looked at his stats before. We talked about his stats before, but just he would have just really, really highs and really, really lows, like really, really low lows, and like you're like, man, like I don't like I think that's a lot of mental on his side, but I also think it's a coaching thing. Like maybe you got to figure out how to like calm him down, how to like settle in, what to do to get him rolling. Like we talked about with Hurts, run a read option, let him roll a pocket, and a design run. Let him get moving. So I think that's maybe what they're doing with Wentz. They're getting the ball up quick, getting into these playmakers they have. They have so much speed. Just dump it off to Samuel. We're going to design a lot of pick, slants with a kind of a pick play, and just you don't have to make a crazy throw. You don't have to do anything nuts. And then we're going to hand the ball off to Antonio Gibson, 15 times a game. So I do think they're a dangerous team if we don't game plan them right. I mean, similar to the Vikings, but I do think that we can get in his head just by getting some pressure. Like you said, hopefully with the front four, but if not, then bring the pressure. I have confidence in our corners and having Marcus Epps, Gardner Johnson back there. I have confidence in us, being able to stop them.
Yeah. Side note, we'll go another 3 minutes on the Commanders and Eagles, but Marcus Epps, he's made some plays, man.
Yeah.
He made a play in Detroit. He closed fast and laid a big hit.
Yeah.
He's a young guy who's played pretty well. And when I think about matching up on the back end, man, I think of Slay, I think of James Bradbury, I think of Avonte Maddox, and then Chauncey Gardner. He's a safety, but he's a nickel corner, really. He probably needs some work at safety. He about gave up that big one last week to Irv Smith. Irv Smith dropped it, but that was Gardner Johnson getting a little too aggressive.
Right.
But man, as far as matching up man to man, being able to bring pressure, these are the corners you want to do it with. And I like that Gannon has shown that. Like Gannon's blitzed. One more thing. This is not really specific, dude, but what are your thoughts on TJ Edwards so far?
He's played really, really well. I expect, like, I know everyone talked about him. Like everyone said, this guy's going to take a big leap. We talked about it. It's very exciting. It's easy to jump on the hype train of Nakobe Dean. You want to see Nakobe Dean on the field, but if TJ Edwards is doing his job, which he is, then you can't really argue for it. But no, I'm very happy with the way he's played. Stopping the run, he's played very well in coverage as well.
Yeah.
Which is something I thought he lacked in. I assumed like we're going to see Edwards get beat a lot. He's going to over pursue on things and get beat. I don't love on the topic of linebacker. I don't love you sent me a text during the game about Reddick dropping into coverage. I hate it. I hate that. Like it makes zero sense. he's not a coverage linebacker. He's an athlete. He's athletic enough to do it, but I want him rushing the passer. Like if he's on the field, he needs to be rushing the passer.
There's a lot of athletes, tremendous athletes, who can't cover.
Yeah, Davion Taylor is a phenomenal athlete, but we don't really know what his role is yet. Like we don't know what he's doing. Then there's guys like Isaiah Simmons, freak athlete, struggled his first year because they played him at safety, like exclusively at safety, where he looked okay. And then they brought him in, played linebacker, kind of playing the box. He had a better year. And then this year he's looked phenomenal. Maybe not this year. Preseason, maybe it was preseason. He's making flash plays. They're kind of just letting him roam. He's just kind of playing all over the field, just being an athlete. So, but I got off topic a little bit. But Edwards, I so far I love what I'm seeing from Edwards. I would like to just bring in Nakobe Dean for blitzes. At least get him in there a little bit because he needs to be on the field some. Whether you have a guy ahead of him is great or not. If you have a guy like him behind you, you got to play him some. So no, very happy with Edwards so far. I don't want to see Reddick in coverage anymore, but I'm sure we will. I think they're just maybe they're just kind of like designing blitzes or like hiding blitzes like that where they have Reddick, drop and the linebacker comes. Like I get that, but
yeah, and sometimes I saw during the Vikings game, they have 5 man on the line. One of them's going to drop. And if they've got like 11 personnel, if they've got 3 wide receivers out there, the side of the field where there's 2 wide receivers, this guy can drop and kind of potentially affect the slot receiver.
Right.
Like drop, take away the inside slant, or drop, take away make it a tougher throw.
Right.
Over the linebacker of the head of the linebacker, whether it's Reddick. I've seen Graham drop. I've seen Sweat drop. So I don't know. Look, I don't like it either, but I like how the defense played last week.
Right.
So I think it's got to be, you got to look at it like all encompassing. Like we gave up 7 points.
Right.
To like the Vikings, who have the top 3 wide receiver in the league and top 3 running back in the league in regards to all-purpose yards, like 7 points. Also, that game I felt like was kind of over when we hit Quez Watkins deep.
Yeah.
The Vikings had a couple more chances to get in the game. They just didn't. But this week's going to be different. We're going to be on the road. There'll probably be a lot of Eagles fans there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, man. Excited for every Eagles game, but excited to see Carson Wentz lining up, playing against the Eagles is going to be cool. Any final thoughts, Ryan, before we end this one?
No, I don't think so, man. Just like we said before, stick to the game plan. Stick to what we've been doing. Don't get too cute with stuff. Don't try to, sling the ball around, run the football, and I think that the Commanders will Carson Wentz, I think will make errors enough to kind of keep them out of the game.
I wonder how it'll be with like Jalen and Wentz. Will they shake hands? Will they talk? Like,
I'm sure they will. They're both like respectful. They're not like, divas. I don't think Wentz is a little bit of a diva, but no, I think they'll be respectful. I think Jalen is probably playing maybe with a chip on his shoulder, for the guy that was his supposed, mentor, and people complained when they drafted him because we just gave Wentz all that money. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, man.
Hey, man, if Jalen continues to project or on this trajectory that he's on, man, like Howie Roseman is going to look really, really smart.
Yeah, he will.
We'll see. Hey, guys, thanks for watching another episode of the Bird Brothers, 2 brothers in Ohio who are lifelong Eagles fans. Follow us on Instagram at @the.birdbrothers. Instagram is at @the.birdbrothers. And please like and subscribe. We put out content weekly talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, guys, have a great day.